Wellness Rhythm Show. Find your rhythm. Live your wellness.
Y'all, let me tell you something that genuinely surprised me. I went in for a routine checkup last year. Fasting glucose looked totally fine. Doctor said, great, see you next year. And I walked out feeling good. Then I did a little more digging, and I realized I had been asking completely the wrong question about my metabolic health.
Right, and that experience is incredibly common. Most people hear your fasting glucose is normal and treat it as a clean bill of metabolic health. But here's what the research actually suggests. Fasting glucose is a bit like checking whether your car is leaking oil while it's parked in the garage. It tells you almost nothing about what happens when you actually drive the thing.
Which is exactly why today we are talking about insulin sensitivity, and specifically why your metabolic response to carbohydrates may matter far more than that single fasting number your doctor glances at once a year.
This one genuinely changed how I think about food and energy. So let's get into it.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning, because I know insulin sensitivity sounds like a term your endocrinologist throws around. What are we actually talking about here?
Right, so at its core, insulin is a hormone your pancreas releases when you eat carbohydrates. Its job is to escort glucose out of your bloodstream and into your cells for energy. Insulin sensitivity describes how efficiently your cells respond to that signal.
And when your cells stop listening properly, that's insulin resistance.
Exactly, think of it like knocking on a door. If you are insulin sensitive, someone opens the door immediately. If you are insulin resistant, you are knocking louder and louder and nobody answers quickly. Your pancreas then has to produce more insulin just to get the same job done.
Here's the thing though, that process can be happening quietly for years before your fasting glucose ever budges, which is what got me. Everything looked normal on paper.
And this is where the research gets genuinely interesting. A landmark paper published in the journal Diabetes Care by Dr. Ralph DeFronzo, one of the leading figures in metabolic research, described what he called the ominous octet, essentially 8 separate physiological dysfunctions that develop in type 2 diabetes. And insulin resistance is the first domino, often present a decade before diagnosis.
A decade. That is a long time for something to be quietly going on in your body with no obvious signal.
Which brings us to the fasting glucose problem. The standard fasting glucose test gives you a snapshot of your blood sugar after 8 to 12 hours of not eating. But that number can remain stable while your insulin is working overtime to keep it there.
So your glucose looks fine, but only because your pancreas is basically sprinting behind the scenes to make that happen.
Precisely. And a more informative measure is something like the Oral Glucose Tolerance Test, or OGTT, or increasingly, continuous glucose monitoring, which tracks how your blood sugar rises and falls in response to actual meals. Dr. Gerald Revan at Stanford, who first formalized the concept of insulin-resistant syndrome back in the 1980s, argued for decades that postprandial glucose response was far more clinically meaningful.
Okay, so who does this actually affect? Because I think some listeners might be thinking, I'm not diabetic. This probably isn't about me.
Brilliant point, Emma. This is the thing. Research from the CDC suggests that roughly 88 million American adults, that's more than 1 in 3, have prediabetes, and the vast majority have no idea. And that figure doesn't even capture the broader population with suboptimal insulin sensitivity who would never be flagged.
And for our audience specifically, whether you are in your 30s juggling work and kids, or in your 50s navigating menopause or career transitions, insulin sensitivity changes across life stages. It is not just a concern for people who are already unwell.
Right. Estrogen and testosterone both play protective roles in metabolic health. So, hormonal shifts during perimenopause and andropause genuinely affect insulin sensitivity, often independently of diet or exercise changes. Studies published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism have documented this quite clearly.
Y'all, I did not connect those dots until fairly recently. I was blaming my energy crashes after lunch on stress or bad sleep. And yes, those were factors. But my carbohydrate response was also part of that picture.
And that post-meal energy crash is actually a meaningful signal. A sharp rise in blood glucose followed by an overcorrection downward, what researchers call reactive hypoglycemia, is often a sign of impaired insulin sensitivity. Dr. Robert Lustig at UCSF has written extensively about this cycle and its downstream effects on hunger, mood, and cognitive function.
Speaking of which, if you are finding this conversation useful, please do hit like and subscribe. It genuinely helps us reach more people who need this kind of honest, practical health conversation.
So let's talk about what actually improves insulin sensitivity, because there is good news here.
There really is. And the good news is, none of it requires a complete lifestyle overhaul overnight.
Let's start with the one with arguably the strongest evidence: movement. A landmark meta-analysis in Diabetologia found that both aerobic exercise and resistance training improve insulin sensitivity, and the effects are relatively rapid, sometimes within a single session.
Which blew my mind. Like, one workout can meaningfully shift how your cells respond to insulin for the next 24 to 48 hours.
The mechanism is partly through a protein called GLUT4, which essentially creates additional doors in your muscle cells for glucose to enter, independent of insulin. Exercise is one of the very few ways to activate that pathway without needing the hormone at all.
Okay, I love a good cellular door metaphor. Now here's where I want to bring in some nuance, because I know some listeners are going to hear carbohydrate response and immediately think they need to go full low carb or keto. And I don't think that's necessarily the conclusion.
And I'd agree with that caution. The research on low carbohydrate diets for insulin sensitivity is genuinely mixed. Studies from Dr. Sarah Holberg's team and others do show benefits for some individuals, particularly those with significant insulin resistance. But population-level data, including work from the Harvard TH, Chan School of Public Health, consistently points to the quality and context of carbohydrates mattering more than simple elimination.
Fiber, for instance. Fiber dramatically slows glucose absorption, which means a smaller, slower insulin response. Legumes, vegetables, whole grains, these are not the enemy.
And meal composition matters enormously. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed that eating protein and fat before carbohydrates in a meal significantly blunted the glucose response compared to eating the same foods in reverse order. Small change, meaningful effect.
Here's the thing, though, that is actually doable. Start with your salad and protein, then have the bread. That is a practical intervention that does not require giving up anything.
Sleep is another underappreciated lever. A study from the University of Chicago, published in the Annals of Internal Medicine, found that just 4 nights of shortened sleep reduced insulin sensitivity in healthy adults by roughly 25%. 25%. That is substantial.
And stress. Chronic cortisol elevation, which our sandwich generation audience knows all too well, directly impairs glucose metabolism. The research on this from the American Psychological Association is pretty sobering.
Which is why the reductive just eat better advice misses so much. This is a systems-level issue. Sleep, stress, movement, and diet composition are all interconnected inputs.
Okay, let's address the skeptic in the room, because I know someone is thinking, this is getting complicated. Do I really need to worry about this?
Fair challenge. And my honest answer is, it depends on your symptoms and your risk profile. But the reason this conversation matters is that the tools for improving insulin sensitivity, exercise, sleep, fiber, stress management are also the tools for improving energy, mood, cognitive function, and longevity more broadly. You are not doing this just to manage a metabolic number.
Exactly. This is not about fear. It is about understanding your body well enough to make choices that actually feel different in your daily life.
And if you want objective data, talking to your doctor about an oral glucose tolerance test, or even exploring consumer continuous glucose monitors, which have become much more accessible, can give you a personalized picture that fasting glucose simply cannot provide.
Knowledge is genuinely useful here, not anxiety-inducing, useful. All right, if you are taking one thing from this episode, let it be this. Your fasting glucose is a starting point, not the full story. Pay attention to how you feel after meals. Prioritize that post-meal walk, front-load your protein and fiber, and protect your sleep. Those are not small things.
Right. And if I'm being precise about it, the single most actionable step with the strongest evidence is simply moving your body within 30 minutes of eating. Even a 10-minute walk. Dr. Sherry Kohlberg's research on post-meal exercise and glucose control makes a compelling case for that one habit above almost anything else.
Y'all, thank you so much for spending this time with us. Your metabolic health is worth understanding, not because wellness culture tells you to optimize everything, but because energy, clarity, and feeling good in your body, that matters at every age and every life stage.
Optimistic conclusion from me, the levers are accessible, the science is solid, and you do not have to be perfect. You just have to be consistent. That is genuinely enough.
See you next time on the Wellness Rhythm Show. And please like and subscribe if you have not already. It truly makes a difference. This show is part of the VoxCrea.AI system. If you want a show like this for your organization without building it yourself,
go to VoxCrea.AI and request a sample episode.